First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
On the line right now is Ryan Nobles from CNN. Good morning, Ryan. Good morning.
Hey, Bill. Good morning. Haven't talked to you in a while. Good to talk to you again.
You've been on traveling the world, from what I understand, on vacation and
not quite the world.
Oh.
Yes, I was on vacation last week.
What does somebody do when they travel for work? When they go on vacation, they just go home.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to be
well,
home.
The big difference is you're with your family as opposed to your work colleagues.
Right. You get different experience.
And you don't have to respond to emails. That's the other nice thing.
That's very helpful. Well, listen, I think there might have, and I'm just going out on a limb here, there might have been a better plan, even though President Biden says, nope, this is the best we could do. It almost seems like there could have been a better plan on how to pull out of Afghanistan. What are you finding out there?
I think that's probably a universally held opinion at this point, Bill. Maybe aside from the president himself and his most closest advisors, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone here in Washington and beyond who thinks that this situation wasn't a colossal blunder by the administration. Now that, is also offered up with the caveat that Joe Biden isn't responsible for the situation in Afghanistan. This was a decision 20 years in the making, a number of presidential administrations that didn't want to deal with it or simply kicked the can down the road. Was widespread political opinion that most Americans didn't want to be involved in that conflict anymore. But I think most Americans also didn't realize what was going to happen the second that there wasn't a strong American military presence in Afghanistan. I don't think anybody predicted how precipitous the Taliban takeover would be in the humanitarian crisis that it created. And I think that's what you're alluding to, is that it seems as though this drawdown could have been handled much more smoothly. And at the very least, before the major American military presence was gone, that all of those Afghan who have supported the U.S. military mission, whether they be interpreters or just contractors that supported the mission in any way, shape, or form that were immediately vulnerable to Taliban forces, should have been removed as quickly as possible.
Yep.
I know on Capitol Hill, for instance, that there have been Democratic lawmakers. Seth Moulton from Massachusetts is one of them, who've been screaming for the rooftops about these special immigrant visas back in January when after President Biden won the election. So they knew problems could potentially exist. I'm sure they didn't expect it to happen so fast, but you're right. I think this could have been handled much differently.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing about this, like you said, all year long, and now all of a sudden we're surprised. I thought it was also very interesting, some of the conflicting statements in Biden's speech the other day. Number one, saying we thought the Afghanis would be able to handle and stand up for their own country militarily. We thought they would be able to. Yet in the next breath, he said, we were surprised it fell as quickly as it did. So which is it, right?
And that's been the biggest problem that I think Biden personally has had throughout this process, is that his position on all of these things are completely all over the map. And things that he said just a few weeks ago have turned out to be completely incorrect. He said that they had the full confidence that the Afghan military would have the capacity to hold the Taliban off, which that was one of the most colossal, under predictions of all time. The Afghan military just completely flopped the second that the U.S. military wasn't there to back them up.
Yeah.
And then, he's also said that the buck stops here with him, that, this is all his responsibility, while at the same time blaming previous administrations for the role they did not play in this whole process. Bill, I think this is an example of how difficult it is to be president of the United States, right? Because I think that Biden is correct, and he's correct in the fact that most Americans didn't want our troops in harm's way in Afghanistan anymore. I mean, let's be very clear. That was Donald Trump's position. Donald Trump was ready to pull those troops out. It was Barack Obama's position. He wanted to pull those troops out. The difference, though, is when met with the reality of the situation. Now everyone's perception has changed. Now when they see the fallout from it, now everybody has complaints. And I think the bigger problem here for Biden is it's a competency issue. If you see what happened here, whether or not you have a strong opinion about Afghanistan at all, it's impossible to look at this without recognizing the fact that it was handled very poorly.
Yeah.
And then that leads you into questions about whether or not, the COVID response is being handled appropriately, whether or not any other domestic policy issue is being handled well. And so just this idea, his approval rating is now under 50% for the first time in his administration. This is without a doubt the biggest challenge of his presidency. And, how he gets out from underneath this right now, I'm having a hard time trying to see.
Yeah.
Ryan, you mentioned a question of his competency. I guess I have to ask you this. I'm surprised that the generals, the people who know this stuff, I understand he's the commander-in-chief, so what he says goes, but I'm sure he sought input, and somebody had to tell him, look, if you do it like this, it's just going to be like knocking over a domino. It's going to go down quick. Mm-hmm. They don't have a chance. Like, there's a better way. Or you want to withdraw, I'm fine, but there's a better way we can do this than just pulling out in 2 weeks.
Jeff, the question that you just asked is the biggest question that I think is swirling around Washington right now, and particularly where I work on Capitol Hill. Both Democrats and Republicans want to hear from the intelligence community. They want to hear from the highest leadership at the Pentagon. They want to hear from leadership at the State Department. And they're asking that very question. What did you tell the president that led him to say, we're going to draw our military forces down rapidly, and we're going to do it in a way before all of our translators and support staff are pulled out of there, before all the special immigrant visas have been processed? Some Republicans, like Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, have suggested that Biden was told that by his top generals, that they warned that this was going to be the outcome, and he overruled them. Now, if you listen to the Secretary of Defense, if you listen to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, if you listen to the Secretary of State, they all seem to be, singing from the same hymn book. But you're right, there seems to have been either a tremendous misanalysis of what could potentially happen once Americans left, or just Biden hearing from these people and seeing these intelligence reports and deciding that he didn't care. We didn't have the clear answer to that yet. My guess is at the end of next week, there's going to be a series of briefings on Capitol Hill, both classified and unclassified, where these generals and leaders are going to have to answer tough questions, and some of them are going to be appearing in public hearings as soon as next week. That, I think, is the biggest question that needs to be answered right now.
Yeah. Ryan, we'll do it again. Thanks, man. We'll talk next week.
Wait, Jeff is leaving? Nobody told me this.
Jeff is leaving. His final day is tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Has there anybody been at WIBX longer than Jeff? This is
actually,
only the transmitter
and Jim Rondinelli.
Yeah.
Jim
Rondinelli. Can I tell you, Ryan? Though he is leaving to work as. Go ahead, tell him.
I'll be working in Assemblywoman Marianne Buttonshawn's office. I'm really excited about that. Yeah. I'm really excited.
All these people that email you and complain about me realize that you've been a closet Democrat this whole time?
Dude, I was going to tell you, this is your chance to get all your shots in, and that was a gem right there.
That was a goodie.
Ryan, if you're sick of that CNN life, we do have an opening here at WIBX.
All right.
Please, yes.
All right.
So
Boy, they'll forget about me quick if Ryan comes in here. Holy
all right,
cow.
Ryan, thanks, man. We'll do it again
take it easy,
next
guys.
week.
Bye-bye.
Have fun. All right.